Kevin, it has been a long, long, long 8-month period. But you know what? No longer do I have to care. Shut up. No longer do I have to pretend to care about soccer and the World Cup. No longer do I have to pretend to care about regular season baseball. No longer do I have to pretend to care about some stupid Gina Carano and Ronda Rousey fight, because football is back. Oh, college football is back. I'm so happy. God bless it. I'm so ready for this season.
Dude, I was mowing the lawn earlier, and just the smell of the fresh cut grass, it reminded me of like two-a-days back when I played high school football. Just that. Whew.
I've been inhaling all football stuff that I possibly can. Last night I was like listening to the Brandon Walker College football show while doing on one monitor, while doing research for this episode on another monitor, and on my phone I had Hard Knocks on. Oh, it's just, I'm so ready. I've been watching every preseason game I possibly can. And you know what, Kevin? Shout out us. This is a 1 year since we actually started doing this, maybe not to the day, but in terms of the only calendar that matters, and that is the college football calendar, 1 year to the day. Season 2 starts now.
And we have a fresh slate, clean slate, 0-0 on our picks.
That's right.
And that's exciting because last season did not go.
Kevin, how did we do last year?
We ended up, I think we both got 58 picks right. And then I think I had 76. Not the best. But
well, Kev,
we've learned from our mistakes.
Week 0 is always a funny thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you never really know what to expect going into these games. But I will say they stepped up their game a little bit this year with some of the competition levels, definitely. Last year, Farmageddon was the only thing that we had to really look forward to. And now we have 2 games that are at least 2 Power 4 matchups, which could be interesting. And then we get to see other programs that we've been talking about go. We'll get into this more with the games, but, you know, USC and Florida State taking on 2 of those G6 programs that did not look good last season at all. But here we are. I cannot wait to talk about these. But, Kev, before we get into that, we would be doing a disservice to the people who watch us, or person that watches us, because it's now just your mom after you made a comment about
shout out Andrew. Andrew
episode.
Watches.
What's that?
Andrew watches. Shout out Andrew.
Yeah, shout out to one other guy. But we would be doing a disservice if we didn't talk about what the heck are we doing in this sport in terms of figuring out who can play and who cannot play this close to the season. That's the thing that makes me the angriest about this. You know, you have the whole Daquan Thornton thing going back, but yeah, we got players coming back from the NFL. That hurts me to my core, and we're going to talk about this probably a little bit more when we get into the game. But I saw, because On3 are the guys who have been like consistently letting these news snippets come out like immediately as they're coming out, and I saw what looked like an On3 tweet that said Justin Fields to play at Texas Tech. And I had to research to confirm if it was true or not. Like, that's where we have gotten right now. It make no sense. And you have the Big Ten and the SEC came out today, and this week, and they have said that they're not going to allow it to happen. But I also just saw come across my phone that the guy who came from the Browns to play at LSU, most Lane Kiffin thing ever, by the way, is cleared to play. So the SEC can say no, but they get the... what are we doing? It makes no sense. I started with that. And guess who's accepting Tommy Castellanos for an added year of eligibility to play?
Boston College.
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech, shout out. Yeah, well, look, the end is not in sight. I don't think it's going to get any better. Yeah, I don't think it's going to get any better. I think it's going to be one of those things that we just get used to, all the absurdity of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm coming down from what was just essentially an adrenaline rush. But yeah, do we want to get right into talking about the Aer Lingus Bowl? Because I'm very excited about this one.
Yes, sir. Check out, dude, I got this nice little magazine from the grocery store the other day. does like team preview for a lot of the. Anyway, shout out Primetime Sports on that. Now, let's
What
get
grocery store did you go to
into
that?
what
What grocery store?
Wegmans.
Shout out Wegmans. Okay.
Shout out Wegmans. All right, should we get into the kind of Air Lingus bowl here?
Yes, yes, yes,
Last
yes.
year, this has a special place in our heart because last year it was the very first game we ever predicted, the two of us, Kansas State and Iowa State. I took Iowa State to
Yeah.
cover, you took Kansas State to cover. I took the over, you took the under, and we met in the middle.
We
Iowa
split
State
that.
got it done and
Yep.
under. The game ended at the 1 yard line. We're going to get this one down to a science here. We have
Yes.
Bill Belichick and Tar Heels come against Sonny Dykes and the TCU Horned Frogs.
Yeah, dude, look, obviously Bill Belichick headlines galore this offseason, my goodness. Okay. The one thing that I noticed, I went back and checked our last episode that is just to air, and we were talking about UNC, and it was pretty funny because we were like, yeah, Mike Lombardi left the program, and then you said, yeah, didn't a staffer get an HR complaint or something? And it turned out that those stories kind of merged right there in the middle. So yeah, Mike Lombardi, his right-hand man, is gone. But like as you have listed here, Mr. Bobby Petrino, the offensive machine who came from Arkansas.
So Michael Lombardi's son, Matt, is still the QB coach
That's dirty.
for UNC. So that's kind of a weird. Also, just save our viewers some time. No relationship to Vince Lombardi, the two of them.
Yes, yeah, that's good that we made that clarification. Good job, Ken. But yeah, no, Arkansas Razorbacks. He was the interim coach last year. I think we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't talk about first and foremost the QBs have switched with both of these teams going into this new season. However, one of those was a big shakeup with Mr. Josh Hoover, who had an electric season last year at TCU, who's now going on to be, I think he's ranked number 5 in QBs according to Sports Illustrated preseason rankings with Indiana, Mr. Kirk Cignetti. Sonny Dykes, he went out there and he got a fine G6 edition, I will say. He put up, and Jaden Craig, who used to play at Harvard. He is now a true senior, and there was talk about him potentially going to the draft last year. I don't want to minimize that. However, I do think, one, he made the right decision by going to a power forward to kind of display his skills in a really all eyes on me kind of position. And two, this is going to be a lot different level of competition. That goes without saying. But in the training camp, a lot of teammates and coaches have been singing his praises, a lot of them, including backup QB Brad Robbins and sophomore wide receiver Ed Small. They've been talking about how he's really jiving with their passing game coordinator. And, a guy who was able to be at Harvard by virtue of just being at Harvard has all the experience, and he's probably got the IQ. So I'm going to be very curious to see how he deals with the adversity that he probably didn't have a lot of over there at Harvard, and now that he's in the Power Four, and if he's able to use that maturity to his advantage and kind of adjust game plays as things are going wrong, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think the interesting piece of that is TCU has a new offensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
my big takeaway from him, and this might, kind of work to not Hoover, Jaden Craig's advantage. TCU their offensive last year, the year before, very air raid, pass heavy. Gordon Samus, a little bit more of a balanced kind of play to his players' strengths type coordinator. So that I think gives a bit of a safety net for this new QB coming in from Ivy League to the Power Four. Yeah.
Big time. And one thing that I read was Gordon Samus, I think I'm saying that right, from UConn, is kind of being brought on because, last season TCU as a program did have a lot of sloppy drops, turnovers, things that really shouldn't happen. He's going to focus more on the fundamentals, get kind of back to the basics and discipline so that, especially down there in the trenches, they can really shore up and really kind of focus on ball security. So be curious to see how that ties in with Sonny Dykes. One thing that I also noticed, Kev, I was checking TCU's recruiting profile. They've been on a downward trend. in terms of recruiting. So I went back and looked since the Max Duggan era. Back then, their recruiting ranking, according to 247 Sports, was 25. In the years since, they've gone on to be ranked number 33, number 37. In 2026, their now overall rank is number 46. And in 2027, their ranking is currently at 53. So that, I'm looking at that, that is a sell high type mentality. The only reason I bring that up is because I do think right now, just by virtue of this being UNC, a program that looked, we can both admit this, Kev, terrible last season. And because of how that game went to start the season last season between these two, a lot of people are probably just going to sweep it under the rug. You know, TCU, they've had success. They've experienced good success. UNC doesn't know what they're doing. All that to say, there are holes in TCU that can be exploited.
I did have a few things just to note. Kind of the turmoil of UNC does continue even past the Michael Lombardi leaving.
Yes.
Just a couple weeks ago, I guess 3 weeks ago now, their defensive coordinator, Steve Belichick, which is Bill Belichick's son,
Right.
if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah, I didn't see that he's on leave. I'm very curious.
yeah, there's not really much of an explanation still. Bill Belichick is going to be calling the defense on the field, so that is interesting. I think we'll see if Bill's been able to bridge the gap himself and collegiate level athletes. I think him calling the defense in this game will kind of show how far he's come along or how far he still has to go. Is he able to, on paper, he's always been able to put together a good scheme, but actual execution, again, that's where I think things went wrong last year. Is he expects NFL level consistency and cleanliness out of 19, 18, 20-year-olds.
I'm going to put on my Perez Hilton hat here and say that it was also Steve Belichick's wife who lashed out repeatedly at Jordan Hudson a lot last year. Kev, I don't know if you heard this. They added a free safety in the offseason from Louisiana Tech, Jacob Fields, who was the Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year. He was really meant to bring in like a lot of experience and depth to their secondary. And this is a recent headline, but he is not eligible to play for assaulting another player in the locker room.
Oh,
and dude,
this is UNC?
No, this is TCU.
Oh.
Now, dude, you got to think about what these preseason camps are like and how physical these guys happen and how fights already happen. The amount of idiocy you have to be displaying to go past that point and make it so they're like, no, that's too far is so bad. And they're not giving us that many of the details, but I just thought it was an interesting story to look at.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm going to raise you another Louisiana Tech transfer that TCU is bringing on. Their punter, John Hoyt, and John, I feel like Virginia Tech fans will agree with. John is a goated first name for special team players. You got John Romo, John Love, but this Louisiana Tech transfer last year averaged 47.3 yards per punt, 28 landed inside the 20-yard line. Yeah, I think the only reason why I bring that up, one, because you mentioned another Louisiana Tech transfer, I had to show my knowledge too, but also because a game like this overseas, it is going to rain. Sometimes having a punter that can pin someone back deep, I ended up not picking over under on this one, but I was gonna under when I was leaning towards it, and something like that. As well as having two new offensive coordinators for each team.
Yes.
Like that kind of just spells tough sledding for both offenses.
If I was going to pick an over-under, I would take the under just because of what you just said. Now, Kev, earlier I did text you that I reserve the right to switch up picks.
Yes.
Okay. That being said, I want to touch on what you said about what I see here about who will step up as the leader for the TCU defense. They did lose their standout cornerback, I believe, last year, who led the team with 4 interceptions. And obviously, losing Mr. Jacob Fields was tough because he was supposed to be a guy who would bring experience. So they're going to be leaning on senior Jordan Lester for the starting free safety position. So it's kind of like, you got to juggle. But on offense, they are bringing back their running back who had the leading production last year. They lost Eric McAllister, who's been working out with the Giants a little bit in the offseason. I don't know if he's going to make the roster or not, but they are bringing back their second most productive wide receiver in Jordan Dwyer. So they will still have weapons, mind you. They still will have weapons. I think the biggest questions for them are going to be how well they can protect Jaden Craig. You know what I mean? Especially in the Big 12, a conference that really is focused on like kind of nitty gritty, like in the trenches play, where they really are attacking the QB a lot more aggressively. So here's one last thing. TCU covered in 2025, 3-1-0 in terms of non-conference games, 75%. UNC was 3-5-1 against the spread as the underdog last year. So just keep those in mind.
With TCU's 4 non-conference games, this would be a wild poll if you had it, but
Yes.
who were they last year? How many Power 4 opponents? And with that said, I'm going to get into, I think it's set so mine will go first. You touched on Jaden Craig. He's going to need to get that protection because one shortcoming he had at Harvard, while he did put up good stats, he was not great under pressure. So if he gets pressured, I believe he had 7 interceptions, and I think 6 of them came when he was facing pressure. So that's one note. Bobby Petrino, Coach Lamar Jackson. Now
Love that.
is Billy Edwards Jr. the next Lamar Jackson? No, I believe he had red hair. But he played at Wisconsin last year.
He brings experience,
for
man.
Maryland
He brings experience.
played under Tagovailoa to his younger brother at Maryland.
Yes, at Maryland.
I think he is going to play well with Bobby Petrino. I think Bobby Petrino is going to give him the type of offense that he needs to excel. TCU on the road last year, we're going to say aside from that UNC game, but they just either their offense or their defense would show up. Very rarely both. After the UNC game, I think they only averaged 22 points per game on the road. So
now, Kev, I gotta point this out because I did make my picks on DraftKings before we started this. It is now 9.5 on DraftKings.
It's now 9.5.
Yes.
Wow. I feel even better then.
You can go ahead and reveal my pick because I'm flopping on this. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I took UNC plus 9.5 on DraftKings.
Ooh, okay. So, but you took TCU minus 7.5. So I guess
TCU minus 7.5 was what I texted you when you asked me for the picks, and I reserved my right to change them. So yeah.
True. All right, so we're both going UNC plus 9.5. I like it when we're aligned. Good news for TCU.
Aligned too. This is gambling brain a little bit for me. A lot of people are just writing off UNC because of how interstellarly BS they were last season, how bad the offseason headlines have been. At a certain point, those lines are looking to me, and I'm thinking to myself, I could have envisioned that being 11.5. I could have, but it's not. And, Bill Belichick is the most winningest coach in NFL history.
He's still Bill Belichick, yeah.
Still Bill Belichick. So I'm listening to my gambling brain, and I'm going to go with UNC here.
All right. Hey, I like that. I'm glad we're aligned.
Me too.
Yeah, Ireland noon kickoff this Saturday kicks off the college football season. I believe this is the very first game, right, of the college football season?
It should be. Yes.
All right. So
I had a lot more notes on that I could have.
Yeah, I did have. I had some, but we are going to go on to the next game here. 3 p.m. kickoff, noon kickoff local time in the Coliseum. San Jose State, 38.5 point underdog, coming on to take on number 14 USC. And
San Jose State, not good last year, just not good. And their starting QB that they had, Walker Leggett, is now gone on to replace Darian Mensah. Okay. There's no chance that a team in a single offseason would lose its most productive rusher, its most productive receiver, its most productive tackler, and its most productive secondary, and with none of them timing out, all just going other places, right? There's no way.
Top 3 wide receivers they lost.
Oh, God.
There's no way.
That's a sad state of affairs. I do have to
Well,
give.
I thought there was a butt coming. I thought you were gonna.
No, there's no but. We know it's San Jose State.
Okay, well then allow me to do the butt.
Okay.
All right. So they brought in transfer wide receiver from Penn State, Anthony J.
Yeah.
I have to write down my notes better. Safe and first cousin of Tua Tagovailoa, Tuli Tagovailoa Amosa. All right.
Huh. Okay.
So now we're talking, they got a skilled wide receiver, they got a skilled safety. Look, turnovers were rare last year. Their defense did not do a great job of forcing turnovers. But if you'll recall, in week 2 of last year, they played Texas. They forced 2 turnovers against Texas in that game. Okay. Now we have, all right, I say here the defensive tackle, Solomon Lang, and backer Ethan Powell need to step up. San Jose State got steamrolled by Texas 38-7, Nevada 55-10, Fresno State 41-14, and San Diego State 25-3 last year. However, their 5 other losses were by an average of 4 points. So, that record of 3-9, if things go a little bit different for them, they could have had more of like a 6-6 record. Now, they had a kicker last year who went 8 of 16 on field goals. You think about those close games, how maybe shoring up the kicking game could have fixed things. I believe they had brought in a new transfer kicker. Yes. Okay, so they lost their starting freshman running back, Steve Chavez Soto. He went to Utah.
Yes.
But they got Jabari Bates coming in to take over. The last point on San Jose State that I think is worth noting, their special teams coach, Fred Guidisi, was hired this last year. Again, those field is some other special team miscues. They parted ways with their old special teams coach. They got Fred Udishi, and this is actually his 3rd time coaching special teams with San Jose State. He actually masterminded back in 2013. San Jose State led the country in block kicks with
I did
7.
not know that, but that's
Yeah.
Kev.
So
That's a stat only you would know, my brother. My God, you
yeah,
are
it
the
took me
special
some
teams
digging to
whisperer.
find this, but the bottom line is, all things considered, in the modern era of the transfer portal, teams like San Jose State year after year get gutted. Um, they reloaded a little bit, need be. And I'm not writing them off altogether on this season. This is obviously an extremely tough game to start off with.
Dude, one of the
Um,
toughest. And you got to give a shout out to Ken Neomatalolo, who will be entering his, I think I pronounced that correctly. If I didn't, I apologize. Who will be entering his 3rd season. Long time head coach of the Naval Academy. Oh, and he's also the first Samoan heritage collegiate head coach. So it's pretty cool. USC, holy guacamole with the recruiting that is going into 2026. Number 1, going in with composite ranks to 2026. Yeah, and a lot of these, and there's 5 3-star. Flip that around. 3 5-stars that are going to be starting immediately in Kenyi Pepe, the offensive tackle, Luke Waffle, the defensive edge, who they're all raving about. They're really happy about. And Jamian Winfield, the defensive lineman. Obviously, there are some holes to be fulfilled at the receiving core in Makai Lemon, who is going to be the who's going to catch for, I'm going to go conservatively 3,000 yards with the Philadelphia Eagles this season. And then Jacoby Lane, who I don't know if you've been watching, he's been tearing it up on the Ravens this preseason, so good for him. But they are bringing back their leading rushing producer in King Miller, who held 972 rush yards as a freshman. Wait, he might not have been their leader, excuse me, but he is returning for a sophomore year, and he was a consistent producer on that team. And they're also bringing back Jakeem Stewart, who's returning for his sophomore year after leading the team with 8 tackles for losses and 1 interception in 2025. Now, I want to kind of take a break from all of that to just kind of go into an analysis of Jaden Mayava because obviously him coming back is one of the bigger stories that people are talking about. So it's his last season, right? Like he's kind of bounced around. He's definitely going to the draft. I don't think there's anybody that takes that away from him. He's ranked, I think, number 15 on the Sports Illustrated ranking as a red shirt senior. So that being a dual threat quarterback, the guy has an arm and he's got insane accuracy downfield. He does have some weaknesses that need to be worked on, and a lot of that really comes down to his ability to sort of slow down the play. When the pocket collapses and he feels like that pressure, he does make sloppy plays. And another thing that he does that I learned watching his replays is he locks on to his receivers a little bit too quickly, giving the secondary way too much time to adjust. So if he can just kind of slow his game down a little bit this season, learn to think, get the maturity factor, I really think that'll pay off in dividends for him. And he needs to get some payoff in dividends because this quarterback draft class is going to be stacked. Now, the other thing, Lincoln Riley. Kev, I think I came up with this term in one of our other videos, but I can't remember. Not the hot seat, not even the warm seat, but the lukewarm, tepid seat. Now, what do I mean by that? There are a slew of coaches who have been good for probably 5 seasons, 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons that have been good. But they haven't gotten past the line to great for fan bases that are insanely hungry for greatness. Some of those coaches that I've deemed worthy of this list, Brett Venables, Dan Lanning, Steve Sarkisian, and Lincoln Riley. So, Mr. Lincoln Riley, what does he need to do in this kind of game? He needs to come out here hot. He needs to get his guys tuned up because they have a gauntlet of a schedule in the Big Ten to go through. So, and that includes matchups against Oregon and Notre Dame, I believe.
The one thing I did write down on USC, and this isn't a knock against them, but so they brought in Gary Patterson to run the defense.
Yes.
He
I forgot to talk about that, but yeah.
Previously was with TCU, and actually,
yes.
People have been singing his praises. I believe he's been like an analyst / assistant for the last couple years. I believe he's had a good impact, but he did leave when he retired from TCU. The next season was when they went on to play in the Natty. So,
No,
I don't know if that's necessarily an upgrade. Then
I do like how you and I both have the 4-2-5 defense emphasis listed in our notes.
Yeah, I just kind of thinking how that might impact San Jose State.
Well, they're going to spread out the coverage. You know what I mean? They're going to spread out that coverage. They're going to establish the zones early on, and it's going to really just make life a living heck for Mr. Luke Weaver. Looking at their schedule, that was my task. Dude, listen to this 6-game stretch. Oregon, Washington, Penn State, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Indiana.
That's tough. Ohio State, Indiana. Isn't there a bye week in between, I think, Ohio State and Indiana?
Yes, there is.
Thank God for that for USC fans. But yeah, the other thing I wanted to say, just Jaden coming back, I think having both of the starting running backs coming back, that's going to help take the pressure off. I think as all fans and pundits sometimes forget these are like 20, 21, 22-year-olds.
These are children.
Crazy. Yeah, crazy kind of. So anything that can take the pressure off of a quarterback early in the season, I think is very helpful in the long run. But as the season progresses, you need to see them be able to rise to those moments. It's always a good thing when you have players coming back who were productive last year. But I'm going to get to my pick here. I think San Jose State's going to cover.
Okay.
Going to win. Yeah. No, I don't really know if they're going to win, actually. But, I think 38 points. I think they're going to be able to take advantage of the new defense coordinator. I think it's going to go over 60 points. USC likes to run the score up in these early season matchups. I just think San Jose State can hang around to at least maybe get to like 15 to 48 game.
Okay. Kev,
Yeah, that math works out.
this is another one that I kind of switched up on you because I gave you a 2 pick. So why don't you reveal? And I will say I'm on the opposite side of you with both of these now. Yeah, I'm taking USC minus 38.5, and I'm taking the under. My reasoning is, Lincoln Riley has to come out there, like I said, and just be guns blazing. And, you say new defensive coordinator in my mind as a guy who was a head coach for 21 years, who is now coming back to, he's had time to implement an offseason. They hired him pretty early on in the offseason. And so, yeah, that's why. Oh, but here's one thing I will say that I have another gambling stat that will help your case. So, USC since 2025 in their first week, they are 4-1-0 against in those week one games. Guess what that one time they didn't cover was against?
Was that Lincoln Riley's second season when they played San Jose State and won 56-28?
That is correct. So there you go. There's one historical record to help you out. But yeah, Kev, I do like that we're together on the last one and against each other completely on this. I already submitted all my bets, by the way, so we'll see what happens. It felt so good to open up DraftKings for the first time in a while, do that deposit, and just be like, because right now it's like nothing bad has happened. Right now it's just the moment of just hope. Just like, oh, I'm going to win them all. I have made the conscientious decision that I'm going above 56% this year. Yes.
56%. Okay.
Yep.
And we'll put that number on our screen for the future in our videos. All right.
Here we go. I can't gamble on this one, but yes.
This is one of those games that once when you put money on the game, it kind of takes away from the actual just like appreciation for it. And this is one of those games that is
It's going to be a good one.
yeah.
Yeah.
This
It's going to be a very good
not to mention just a good ACC matchup.
Oh, yeah.
UVA runner up lost the conference championship against Duke last year.
Yep.
NC State sort of perennially in that second to third tier of ACC
Yes.
teams. Yeah, this actually yes, came across this in your research as well, but NC State and UVA have the second and first easiest schedules in the ACC.
They're not. That's
Um,
interesting to see, though.
yeah, so the winner of this game, because this is a conference game this year. Last year, these two teams played, and it was not a conference game. This year, it is a conference game. The winner of this game is I heard someone describe it as the dark horse play-in game for the ACC.
I get that. And so, yeah, like to your point about the second, third tier, right now it's like Miami. Then below that, just based on rankings, obviously, you got SMU and Louisville. But then down here, where, the fray is happening, NC State and UVA are definitely the people that everybody's talking about. How did, in the land of lawlessness that we are in, how did Chandler Morris not win getting an eligibility year? Eh,
Good question. Yeah,
You want,
I honestly wonder if because like Bo Pragula transferred, I'm gonna assume in like January, February. Maybe he just assumed it wasn't worth fighting for because his starting job would not be there even if he came
dude,
back.
Bo Perbula was all gung ho on going to Tech, and he was actually at a visit to Tech when he found out that it wasn't going to happen.
Oh, wait,
Yeah.
like when he was being recruited out of high school
No, 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 no.
or
Like this
transfer
off
portal?
season.
Oh,
I
hmm.
mean, I can double check that, but I saw the headline today when I was like frantically looking through stuff. Dude, I love more than anything about this game this quarterback matchup. You know what I mean? Because it tells two very different stories. You got the classic guy who's able to think versus the gunslingers. This will be like Tom Brady facing Josh Allen in terms of just raw talent versus football IQ. You know what I mean? Because as we saw from CJ Bailey, he was putting up some Madden numbers last season, man. 30,000 yards, my God, 68.8% completion percentage, 25 touchdowns thrown, 215 rush yards, 6 rush touchdowns. I could go on and on, but he does not have good short range accuracy. It's all downfield plays that he's able to put in those wide receivers' hands if he needs to, and he has to have reliable guys that get downfield for him. His dual threat productions is almost non-existent. That's one thing to keep in mind because, as I just noted with the rush yards, folding under pressure, like a lot of these guys, I know it's younger, but like when the pocket's starting to collapse, that's a big consistent weakness. Then you look at a guy like Bo Beulah, where it's painting a very different picture of him being too calm. He's a guy who holds on to the ball for a little bit too long, not too, but he does extend plays. You know what I mean? He's listed. His listed weaknesses are also his dual threat case of capabilities. My God, play fake discipline. He has a lot of that, and he's a good run action seller. So what I'm hearing when I see a guy who's good at play fake discipline and a run action seller, I think, all right, he's a good actor out there. That's part of it. That's what Bo Beulah is bringing to the table. And he's also bringing SEC experience, so you got to keep that in mind. Because if you were to just look at the stats, Kev, so factoring in pass yards, completion percent, touchdowns thrown, rush yards, rush TDs, and interceptions thrown, Bo Beulah loses from last season 5 out of 7 of those. So on paper, CJ Bailey is the better quarterback. But the unspoken skill traits, like the football IQ, I do think Bo Beulah has a little better, which is why I love this matchup. But I just
Yeah,
talked
that's actually
about the game.
that stat thing is surprising because Missouri padded their stats in their first 3 or 4 games last year. I remember the when we were big on the football power index, Missouri was just at the top of everything because their first, like, 3 or 4 games were c and they, were scoring, like, 60, 70 points. I have more notes on NC State,
Okay.
since you were talking through. I'm just gonna kinda go through a couple more
Yes.
of them, and then I'll carry it into UVA. Um, so yeah, as you noted, they're gonna have to have people to catch the ball from CJ Bailey, and they are starting from scratch in the receiver room. So Teddy Hoffman, a few weeks ago, I believe, was suspended for the entire season. And actually, I don't think it was a few weeks ago. I think it was further into the summer, but suspended for the entire season for the anti violation of the anti doping policy.
Ugh.
I did an eye test. I looked him up. He might be on the sauce. That was just my visual inspection of him. Looks like he could be juicing. So like I said, starting from scratch, they have something in the 5'8" speedster from Buffalo, Victor Snow.
Victor Snow.
Yeah, I think he'll be wide receiver 1, but again, 5'8", I believe Teddy Hoffman was like 6'2" or 6'3", so they're gonna need to find kind of a reliable deep threat, or just somebody who can go up and make the catch. Then so for on the running back side, they obviously have a big hole to replace, with Hollywood Smothers leaving. It
Yes, I
seems
forgot
like
about Hollywood.
Duke Scott is gonna be the one to replace him, but I did have a call out for any NC State fans that we have watched, might be none, but, uh, I couldn't find anything about DeAndre Designer or Desinor. He was
Yeah.
he was a highly touted recruit out of Florida, committed to West Virginia, but then at the last second, NC State flipped his commitment. A four-star guy. This should be his sophomore year, and I just couldn't find anything about him, like if he's gonna be, projected to play this year. He's not hurt, so any NC State insiders in our, audience, let me know if.
So my talking point here was about how last season UVA could have attributed a lot of their success to their D line. I think you can agree with stats were going in. I got to be honest, I didn't really watch anything outside of the Clemson game, the Florida State game, and the Duke game with Virginia. So I couldn't be. But the stats speak for themselves. When their opponent rush yards per game was 118.9, putting them at number 23 among FBS schools. Their opponent yards per play was 4.8, putting that at number 20 amongst FBS schools. And then opponent third down conversion, this is what I really liked, was 61.29%, second in the country amongst FBS schools. So you hear something like that, you tend to think that that's like upperclassmen, like led, like kind of heavy with veterans, and you'd be right. They are returning one guy from that unit, from what I can tell, or the one leader from that unit, and Fisher Carmack, the 6'7" edge, who transferred over last season from UNLV. He was the leading sack leader on the team with 4.5 sacks. Ghazi, they are bringing in a journeyman help from a graduate student of Curvin Shute. I don't know if you came across him in your research. 6'4" defensive lineman, 293 pounds, who had 3 seasons at UCF, followed by 2 at UConn. So he's on his last, definitely his last year of eligibility. It's going to be interesting to see how Kevin Downing, the DL coach, kind of implements an old guy like that into the scheme. And when I talk about challenges for Mr. Kevin Downing, the headline I wanted to talk about with you was there were 2 defensive line players who were seniors or were last year was supposed to be their senior year. Throughout this offseason, they've been challenging their eligibility and all that. They were both guys who were tied for the second most sacks on the team in Jacob Holmes, the defensive lineman, and Kazim Moore, the defensive edge. This week, we found out they will not be able to play. Yeah. So that's a big challenge for their defensive line to factor in. Oh yeah, I'm seeing your face right now. He might be rethinking. He might be rethinking, ladies. Changing my pick.
Uh,
I'm taking NC State. I want them to lay the number because I think this has potential to be the best game that we watch. And I do think that the defensive line, like being completely restructured, is going to take away one of their biggest strengths. Bro Bravula is a question, while CJ Bailey is, an understood asset for NC State, who Dave Dorian has no doubt been focusing a lot of his effort in this offseason, because a guy with that kind of numbers, you want to make sure that he can build up that football IQ, maybe get him to the point where he can actually be a serious contender in the draft. So that being said, yeah, give me NC State with the points.
okay. NC State, David Dorn at media day like last month, he said he was tired of being second in the ACC. And what is he second in? You might wonder. It's actually in the last 6 years, NC State has the second most wins of any ACC team. So
Oh,
always in that perennial kind of second. I hate that I use the word perennial twice.
you
Segment.
see, I can't put Dave Dorian on the lukewarm tepid seat for the same reason that I can't put a guy like Kirk Ferentz on the lukewarm tepid seat, in that I think that people just love him so much and the modicum of success that he provides them.
I do remember though when because last year Virginia Tech beat NC State and they were a double digit underdog and they pulled it off. And I do remember just seeing in NC State subreddits like that. I think maybe some of the more diehard NC State fans they're putting Dorn on that lukewarm,
Oh, really?
tepid seat. Just I
Okay.
think they sort of see him as having reached his ceiling. We'll see how this game plays out. Couple more, one little fact. So two of NC State's defensive linemen from last year, Brandon Cleveland and CN Sloan, they're actually both currently signed with the Las Vegas Raiders as undrafted free agents. So that's kind of cool. They're still playing together. And I believe they both just made the 53-man roster. Now, a not so fun fact with all ACC linebacker Caden Fordham gone from NC State's team last year, their front seven was a little gutted. We're gonna have to see if they're able to fill those holes in. Also, Charlie Wiles, does that name ring a bell?
Yes.
Yeah,
Rings a
old for
bell.
Tech defensive line coach.
Thank you.
He was the NC State defensive line coach, but there was a minor reshuffling of the defensive coaching structure, and now he's an off the field admin slash mentor. So, getting into my actual pick here, and I am going to switch my pick. I have called it. So, the reason why I'm going to go with UVA to cover the now 4-point spread, I think they have buy-in. I think they have. Last year was a little bit like a Commanders 2024 and for UVA. They
Yes.
won a lot of games that came down to the wire and they had the edge. I think they still have that kind of identity. Case
Some
in point,
games they had no business winning, kind of deal. I get that
yeah.
comparison. Yeah.
And then case in point, their offensive line coach, he left to take the Stanford offensive coordinator head coaching job. Not one offensive lineman transferred from UVA to Stanford to follow him. So they got buy-in. I believe they're returning all 5 of their offensive line starters from last year. Um, no, that's all I gotta say. This is go as me picking NC State. Um, but I am going to pick UVA to cover a -4 spread.
Okay. The points is what did it for you. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Are you still going NC
No,
State?
I'm still sticking NC State with +4.5. Yeah. Or is it
All right.
+4 now? I
+4.
mean, the half
But
doesn't really do
here
anything.
at Run the Seam Show, you put in your picks under a certain uh, points line, so we will honor that as +5.5. But I do get
Okay.
the
Well,
-4.
yeah.
So if UVA wins by 5, we both actually win.
In a weird way, win. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's get to this last game. And before Kev, I want to give you a gambling stat that's going to be electric to you. In the Mike Norvell era, FSU has covered 4 out of the 6 first games of the season. Both times they didn't cover was the upset losses against Georgia Tech that they experienced.
Oh, they lost to Georgia Tech twice?
Yes, there's the
They
one
lost to
time
them
you
in
were
Ireland
thinking
one
of
year.
in 2024 to start the season on Aer Lingus Bowl that, had everybody so high on Haynes King. And then they also lost again in the season opener to Georgia Tech in 2021.
It shows out in the first game, though. I guess as long as their opponent's not Georgia Tech. Alabama last year, obviously, but didn't they beat LSU a couple years ago? Am I?
Yes, they did, and that was one of the big ones. So they have they cover against teams they shouldn't be covering against, and they don't cover against teams unless it's a G6 team. But in pre-4 matchups, yeah, it's the inverse of what you're thinking it should be.
Yeah, and not to, I mean, Mike Norvell firmly on the hot seat. They just might not have the money to fire him. But this is the type of game that a coach just wants to take out.
Yes.
I feel like wants to take out all of the frustration every time he kind of thought to himself, God, I thought that person was my friend. Why did they publish that? That's all coming out.
Yep.
And I think to kind of cleanse that out of their system against a team like New Mexico State, because they have on Labor Day, on Monday, next Monday at prime time, they're playing SMU. So they got to get
That's going to be a big one.
jitters out. They got to work out the kinks, but they also have to get rid of that negative energy that's sort of been hanging over their heads as the season ended last year, all throughout the offseason.
Yep. Talking about New Mexico State here, Logan Fife, they don't have him anymore. He timed out. The QB they are bringing in that they're going deep in the barrel, getting the guy from Furman and Mr. Trey Hedden, who also had Madden-like numbers and 2,967 pass yards last season. He was named the starting QB this week by the head coach, Tony Sanchez, and I see you have listed down there about the Delaware State running back James Jones that they brought in. He does look solid. I agree with your point. But that's to say they brought in 36 total new players for this one. That's 26 transfers, 4 junior college players, and 6 high school recruits. The only bright spot returning wise that I could really see was they were bringing in a senior safety, Bernak Aya, who was the leading secondary player with 4 interceptions last year. Other than that, New Mexico State, another team in the Conference USA who slightly better than San Jose State, but I believe they went 10th in the Conference USA with a 2-6 in conference record. It's tough for these guys after program like seasons like that because, like you alluded to earlier, they're all going to go other places, and that happens to their leading rusher and their leading receiver who both left. Their leading rusher is actually on the practice squad, so good for him for the Bucks. Their leading tackler also gone. Look, with this one, it's a little different from the previous one with USC for me. We already talked about FSU and the hot seat that they are on. They got one good bright spot to look at this season. It's Deuce Robinson. Ashton Daniels is being brought in as a one season at most veteran QB to see what he can do to help out Mike Norvell. They have future hopes with Jaden O'Neal, if I remember correctly was his name, and they're going to have the Desier twins coming back to play on the line. That being said, Kev, FSU is going to cover, but because I have less expectations for FSU's defense, I'm going to be actually taking the over in this one. So, yeah, those are my picks.
I think what I'm curious to find out is if I pick over or under on this one because I also am covering.
It's
You know,
53 and a half or 63 and wait. All right,
no, I
wait,
think
hold on.
it's
No, keep talking. Let me look it
fact
up.
check me on that. I feel in 2 of these 4 breakdowns now I've talked about a special teams coach, but Adam Shire, Florida State's special teams coach, they brought in. He's coached an all-conference kicker or punter in 20 seasons. 20 times he's coached an all-conference kicker and punter. He's had 4 top 10 special team units in the last 13 years, and he's had 9 special team touchdowns in the last 6 years, which ranks 4th nationally. Mike Norvell is going to be calling plays on offense. Yeah, I think to cover, and I'm can't wait to figure out if I put, okay, I got them under. Yes, 52 and a half. I might not actually be married to that under. I think that was a kneecapping or
Wait, no,
handicapping.
I'm not married to that under either. And in fact,
Yeah,
I'm switching it. Give me the over.
I think I'd like that. I know why I picked the under. My thought for picking the under was, well, if it ends up being a close game, like or whatever, at least I'll have gotten the under because I could see this being like a 28-3 type outing. I'm gonna just take my over under pick away on this one.
I remember my reasoning for picking the over is like kind of my impartial bias about wanting these two guys on the offensive line to really make an impact and protect Ashton Daniels a little bit. So, and I mean, if there's anybody they could do it to, it's going to be New Mexico State. And for the low price of $8,000, if you want to put it on the money line for Florida State, you can get back $100.
Yeah, in the Dana White's Contender Series last night, a -6,000 fighter lost, Bellemere. So
Somebody got
it can
rich off
happen.
that.
So uh, this one, UNC TCU is now 9.5. I'm taking UNC to cover that. You're taking
UNC to cover that.
cover 9.5. So we're on the same
Yep,
page there.
that we
For
are.
San Jose State and USC, the lines are right, but you're switching to
I'm
under.
switching to the under, correct.
Okay, so we're polar opposites there. All right. Then we move on to NC State UVA. It's now a 4-point spread.
Yes, I'm still taking it though for North Carolina, and you're switching to
I'm
UVA.
switching to UVA.
Okay.
And then for New Mexico State, as we just discussed, switching
Yes.
to over, and I am not touching that.
And I'm switching to the over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I
Well,
feel good about my picks. And like I said, I've already said it's going to happen, and it's law. 56% or I get a tattoo. All right.
where'd you get that number from? 56%.
Because I originally I got like 75% in my head, and I'm like I live on planet Earth a little bit, I'm not an astrology guy, and 51% is too low a goal. So 56 was the first thing I came up with, and I do not like to walk back my promises. So 56% or I get a tattoo based on what the comments say. There you go. That's my start of the year bet.
Right.
On this card that we have, that's just our straight picks. So like right. So I have FSU and I have the over. That's 2 picks, right? And so at the end of the year, we'll keep tally of them all. If I'm over 56% there, I'm good. People have to subscribe. And if not, I'll get a tattoo of what the top comment says.
I'd think less of you if you let me do that.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
all right. Well, thanks everyone.
Football's back.
It's
So
back,
happy.
and I like how we're weaning ourselves onto it. It's
Yes.
not the Labor Day slate where it's just every single hour there's going to be a crazy finish. This is they gave us a nice, respectable
Yes.
slate of games
Can we
to
get that little
ease ourselves
breather?
in.
Also, talking NFL for a second here, we get that little breather between preseason week 3 where we just have week 1 college football. It'll be nice.
Yeah,
I'm one of the only people who's actually happy about that, I think.
yeah. I honestly couldn't care less about NFL preseason, but hey.
Remember to like and subscribe, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace.
All right. Stop.